Hey guys, Matt Allen here. Welcome back to TacticalBassin. Today we're doing a springtime gear review. Everything from rods and reels to baits to apparel. Let's go. So we've got everything from big swim baits to crankbaits to blade baits, rods, reels. We're all over the place today. But every one of these items did something that really impressed me. And that's how it got here. So let's kick this off. Let's start with the reel. We'll do the big stuff first. We'll do reel, then we'll do rods, and then we'll just get into the mix with the rest of it, okay? First up, this is the new Shimano Bantam. The Shimano Bantam MGL A. The old Bantam is more of a silver finish. This one has that blacked out look. Bantam, if you're not familiar, it is not the most expensive reel Shimano makes, but it is by no means a budget reel. It's right there in the middle. This is high-end tackle. Okay, the purpose of the Bantam, where it fits in the lineup, is power. Pure power. So we're talking heavy cover flipping, throwing big jigs, where it speaks to me, deep cranking, big baits, okay? It's a pure power reel. So you guys know, if you've watched any of our gear reviews, I don't geek out on tech, right? I don't worry about bearing counts and which one has half a pound of drag more than the other one. I don't care about that stuff. What I care about is functionality and how it's going to change my fishing. Okay, so let me explain in real man's terms why this reel matters. If you're a guy looking for mid to high-end tackle and you want a power combo, heavy flipping, deep cranking, big stuff, this is your reel. And the reason why, it's called Infinity Drive. It's the first time Shimano's ever put it into a low profile reel. Now, I actually did geek out on Infinity Drive a little bit, but here's why it matters. What Infinity Drive does is make it much easier to turn the handle under load. So what does that mean to you? That means you get a great big one on, back in the trash on a flipping stick, it's easier to turn the handle to get them out. You're throwing a 10XD, you know that we love speed cranking. We love cranking on high gear reels. Tim and I throw a 10XD on a 7-to-1 most of the time. If you've ever tried to do that, you know how hard it is to turn the handle. It will flat wear you out, but the fish react to it. They eat it, so we do it. When you throw with a 7-to-1, if you throw a 10XD, it feels like you're turning the handle of a 5-to-1. It's literally that much easier to reel. And that's what makes this reel special for me. So this is not that budget entry guy. This is the guy who fishes a lot, who wants to dial in your gear. If you're looking for a power reel, going onto a flipping stick, going onto a big cranking rod, going on a big jig rod, that animal right there is a beast. Next up, let's do rods. This guy right here fascinates me. Now, this is for the high-end guy, and we're going all over the place today. For the high-end guy, I was on Tackle Warehouse. I am such a tackle junkie. That is not a secret. So I'm on Tackle Warehouse almost every day, scanning the new items page. Like, what came in? What came in? What piques my interest? What should I try? And I saw that Gamakatsu had rods. I didn't know that was a thing. I started poking around. Now, they're high-end rods. They're in the mid-400s. I'll say that up front. Do you know what these are? These are an actual JDM import. So it's a JDM Gamakatsu rod that they brought over to the US. It's not a drummed down version. So a lot of companies build for the Japanese market and then they make a little bit different version for the US market. These are an actual Japanese import rod. So if you have wanted to try JDM, but you've been staying away from it, one, they might be hard to get. Two, warranty, parts, oftentimes do not exist if you order JDM. That's why I stay away from it a lot of the time. You can't get any support for it. Well, this is an actual JDM rod that they brought over, so I had to try it, right? So Got a 7-footer, medium heavy to try. Now here, check this out. This is probably the most interesting feature of this rod. It's a 2-piece at the handle. Now that might seem a little bit foreign to you, but if you've been around JDM gear, this is not foreign at all. This is how it is done. I'll bet I own 7 or 8 rods that are built this way, and I love them. I've never had a problem. So the way you put them together is you insert them, and then you twist to line up those guides. You've got to twist it into place, and if you do that, solid as a rock. You'll never, ever know that it's a 2-piece rod. But you need to stick it in your car, you need to stick it in a smaller rod locker, you can do it. Now, first impression when I got this thing was, wow, that is purple. It comes in a purple rod sleeve. I mean, it's high-end everything, so it comes with its own rod sleeve. I picked it up and my second impression was, wow, that is light. And then I actually started fishing with it, and wow, they are sensitive. So if you have ever wanted to jump into a JDM rod and you don't want to have to go through the import process and worry about it getting here and all that stuff, this Gamakatsu rod, I never thought I would have said that, is really, really nice. I've been fishing it a bunch over the last few weeks, and I have really, really enjoyed it. So this one, 7-foot, medium heavy. They call it a regular taper. So a regular is like, I would describe it as between a moderate and a fast. It's just somewhere, but it's not moderate fast. It's somewhere in between those. So a little bit slower through the mid, but by no means moderate. They're basically do everything rods. They only have a handful of models, but they span over a lot of techniques. So like I have a chatterbait on here today. I've been throwing a Texas rig on it. I've been throwing a smaller jig on it, just getting to know the rod, and I've been so happy with it. Now, the other rod that I want to talk to you guys about today, Tim, in our last gear review, and if you missed it, I'll link it, talked about the fact that there's a brand new Expride. Expride has been completely replaced. By the way, so the Bantam reels, you can pre-order those. As far as I know, they're not in stock. I checked, and they weren't in stock when I looked. But same with Expride. So Exprides, they are showing up here and there, like in little spurts. I see them popping up. So you can get them, but you can also pre-order them so that you know that they're coming. But Tim already reviewed the Expride, but we got a bunch of questions because when guys got amped up, just like we did about new Expride, you know, if I only had one line of rods to use, that would be my line. I use them day in and day out for everything. So everybody else got as amped up as we did when that review happened. And we got a bunch of questions because guys were like, hey, there's a change in the 610 medium. There's a change in the 7.3 extra heavy. There's a change in the 711 extra heavy. And Tim and I were left going, the ones we tried felt identical, but I don't know. We'll get back to you. So if you guys were in that video, in the comments, you saw us saying, we will get back to you. So right now, I'm getting back to you. I got my hands on all those important models that had changes listed. Couldn't tell a difference whatsoever. This is the 610 medium. I have been lighting fish up on this rod. It's phenomenal. It's absolutely just as crisp as the other 610 medium. It's just got that monocoque handle and sensitivity is increased. 7.3 extra heavy, identical. 711 extra heavy. So the only thing I noticed is on the specs, it went from 3 ounce to 2 ounce at the top end of the rating. I have no idea why. If anything, my new ones, the new version, is stouter and crisper. But I really think that's just because I haven't caught a ton of fish on it and really broken it in yet. I really think they are identical. The only difference whatsoever I noticed on the 711 extra heavy is that the monocoque handle is just fractionally longer, maybe that much longer. So everything on the blank is moved just a hair, but the blank, you're never gonna notice a difference. So for the guys who were worried, who had questions, we really did follow through on that. There's your answer. You are good to go. All right, let's jump into baits. Actually, let's talk about this real quick. We don't talk about apparel very often, obviously. You guys see us wearing it all the time. There's a ton of different apparel we wear as we go through the seasons. But this guy stood out to me because of its versatility. So I wanted to talk to you guys about this. This is AFTCO's new soft shell Reaper. So it's an actual, the Reaper, if you're not familiar with that, is the hoodie where you can pull the mask up over your face when it's cold. So in the springtime, in the wintertime, freezing cold on the water, we pull that mask up when we run, and then we go down the lake, and then when you get there, you can pull that thing down. The problem is that you've got that thing around your neck the rest of the time, that mask, when you stuff it down in it. I don't care at all, personally, but that is a fact. It slid down on your neck. So when this soft shell came out, I was like, that's interesting. I'm gonna take a look at that. And this jacket has been phenomenal. So the reason I wanted to tell you about it is because it's a really high-end jacket at not a super high-end price. So it's a nice jacket. You can wear it in town, you can wear it to go out with your family, and then you can turn around and keep it on and go out on the boat, or vice versa. You don't look like a slob when you come off the boat and run into town to meet your family. That's Tim and I's real life, right? We go fishing and then we show up and we're like, sorry, we stink, but let's have dinner. We've been fishing. So the soft shell is a nice jacket. It's a water resistant jacket. It's vented in the armpits, so it's not super hot. It's very comfortable across a lot of temperatures. It's got those rubberized, coated zippers on it to help keep water out. But here's the biggest thing. On the inside of the soft shell is that same Reaper mask, but it stays behind your head if you don't want it. So when I wear this, it's just a completely normal jacket, right? But if I want it, I can grab that mask and pull it over the top, and then I've got my mask, but it doesn't remain around the neck. This is just a totally regular zip up soft shell jacket. So for the price and for its versatility, it's an amazing, what I would call boat jacket, right? Just a day in, day out, keeps you fishing, keeps you comfortable jacket. So I thought I'd tell you guys about it. Next up, let's go here. Big baits. 13 Fishing. So 13 brought out some swim baits a few years ago. They're all boot tails. They just came out with wedge tail versions of them. And when I looked, all in stock. So it's the same baits that they had before. They're shad, they're bluegill. They added a trout actually that looks really good too, but all with a wedge. And you guys know how much we love wedge tails, especially at the beginning of spring, slow rolling. So this guy, the shad, is a full profiled gizzard. Takes a 12-aught hook. So a 12-aught Beast would be perfect, a 12-aught VMC, something like that. Full size, big old bait. They will flat mow that down. That tail, in my mind, that tail makes that bait. I love it. And then same with the bluegill. That bluegill wedge tail. This one has, I actually rigged it, an 8-aught owner Beast hiding inside that. And I do mean hiding. I mean, look how well that hook sits inside that bluegill. You would have no idea. It's sitting inside of a belly slit and sitting inside of a groove in the back. They did a really good job. I'm pumped that they did wedge tails. I think that was a really, really good move. Next up, blade bait for you. Spro carbon blade. These came out, I think these came out at iCast. I think that's the first time I saw them. I've got a little bit of baby brain now with the newborn, man. So sometimes I question myself. But the new carbon blade is a unique bait. So it's a carbon fiber, thus the name, carbon fiber blade. It's not a stamped steel blade. And then it's got tungsten for the weight. As a result, it's incredibly thin. I mean, we're talking paper thin. Really a unique bait. And then they've lined, because it is carbon, they've lined all of the holes. So it comes like this with weedless hooks on it. I have preferred by far to fish the center hole, okay? And that's a stock snap on there too. This is just a different profile. You know how much we love the Vault. You know how much we love the Mega Bass. But this guy is slightly larger than the Vault at the same weight. And sometimes in springtime, that's everything. I've been really happy with this bait. I love how it vibrates. It starts up right away and it's got a good hard thump, which I think is a great thing, especially when you've got some of that springtime stain in the water. Now I do change out my hooks. This is just personal preference. I'm not a giant fan of the weedless hooks myself, so I upgrade. But I keep that snap. That snap is strong. But I just upgrade to trebles on there. Trebles and number 3 hyperwire split rings. But that blade, I mean, I've been creaming them on it. Absolutely creaming them on it. I'm gonna throw it out here while we're talking. It's just a little bit different size, and they're just great. So hop and bottom is how we fish a lipless. Hop bottom. Traditionally, it's a very cold water, deep water, spotted bass and smallmouth technique. But in the last, I don't know, 5 years, you know, it started really with the Vault. When that Damiki Vault came out, that elevated blade baits. They used to just be stamped steel, one shape. Then all of a sudden they got more of a bait fish profile. They got some really good bait fish colors. And next thing you know, this cold water winter phenomenon became a 4-season bait. And a lot of people have missed that boat, that a blade bait went from being a, you know, December, January, February thing to being an all spring, post spawn, summer ledge fishing, right? Truly a do everything bait. And that just was not the case in the past. Oh, I lost him. I had a little white bass on. So anyway, I'll just get distracted fishing. So the blade bait with all these awesome finishes has just really elevated to a new level and become a year-round category. Let's talk about this little guy. This is from Mega Bass. You know the little Z1 and Z2? I love those crankbaits. The Z1 in particular, when in the fall when we're fishing creeks, doing like the kayak drifting, or when I'm out on my jet boat, running in the rivers, that little Z1 is amazing. Well, they came out with the 2 and now a 3. So this 3 is a little, overall, it's a tiny crankbait. I mean, it is definitely a finesse size crankbait, but this little guy is going 13 foot. That's a big deal, right? That's a bait that will get down there. And Mega Bass came out with quite a few completely new, unique crawdad type colors in this bait that I just think are awesome. So for the guy who's fishing smallmouth, fishing spotted bass, or who's fishing a lot of clear water, that downsized profile is a killer little option. Now this one might throw you for a loop. I don't know if you've ever seen this bait. You ever seen this crankbait before? Look at the size of the bill compared to the size of the bait. It's ridiculous. Now, the reason I've never talked to you about this before is that I've crushed them on this thing, and I've crushed them for years on it. This is an Imikatsu. Here's one in the pack. Imikatsu. It's the 800 R2, okay? It's the 800 size. That's that giant bill. This bait pushed the limits of what you could do with a small profile and a giant bill, right? I mean, you cannot get a bill bigger than that and still get it to fish. You just can't do it. So the reason why you've never heard me talk about this bait is that it used to exist and they discontinued it. It went away. And when it went away, I mean, I was on eBay buying those things up, and I had a stockpile of them. It's just a very unique profile because I could get down super deep to about 18 foot I can throw it on 10 to 12 pound line and I can get super far down there, but with a small profile. Because the bait itself, I mean, it's small. I destroyed them on Clear Lake with this thing in the falls. That's when I used to throw it. Every fall, I just cream them on it. But then it went away. Well, all of a sudden, I'm on Tackle Warehouse doing my thing, looking at new stuff, and look what came back. So I bought another giant stockpile of them because just like always, of course, they brought out some new colors and I had to have them even though I already own a mountain of them. But seriously, that Imikatsu, that 800, pushes the limits of how deep and how aggressive a dive can be on a crankbait. Really a unique bait and a bait that I've caught a lot of fish on, and I've caught some really, really big fish on. I'm happy to see that back. 2 more things for you. Hopefully I'm not missing anything. This little guy, Cat 3. How weird is that? It's basically a propeller, like fan blades. They're all angled so it'll spin, and then it's got blades on all of them. What this is a teaser. So you put this on your line above a bait. You could run it in front of a spinnerbait. You run it in front of a chatterbait. You can run it in front of a Bear Kitech. You could do a lot of different things with it, but it's adding a ton of vibration and a ton of flash to any of your other baits. So you could run it ahead of a leader, like with a bead down to a swivel. You can also run it on the line just on bobber stops above and below to hold it in place. But when you see this in the water, that's when it makes sense. It's a ton of flash, a ton of movement out in front of your traditional bait. And that is really innovative and really unique. It caught my attention. I saw underwater footage of it and instantly it caught my attention. I had to have them and they were out of stock. So I waited and waited and waited, and then I bought a pile of them. And then they were out of stock again. Then they came back again. It's been waves of these things over the last few months. And as of now, they are available, but really a unique option to add to your other baits. Again, oftentimes in spring, we get these floods of water and we end up with pretty murky conditions. And that is a unique way to get those fish's attention. Last but not least is this guy right here. Let's talk about boats. Not everybody who watches this fishes from a boat. Some of you guys are on the bank, some of you are in a kayak, a float tube, but a lot of guys are on the bass boat. These are steering stops, okay? These are by Moto Stop. The reason why I threw this in is because they're different. I have owned, to my knowledge, every steering stop that's ever come out. So what is a steering stop? Well, this is the wrong motor to show you an example of because it's just a small 4-stroke. But on a traditional bass boat, you've got that ram sticking out both sides of the motor. And when you're going down the road, if you don't have a steering stop on, your motor will turn to the side. It's really annoying. So you take steering stops and you clip them on both sides of the motor on the ram, and then it keeps your motor straight going down the road. It's the small things, right? Like I said, now I have tried every steering stop there has ever been, and the more rigid ones, the hard plastic ones, I don't know that I'm right, but I blame them for several times where I've popped seals on my steering. I feel like it's banging up against that hard plastic and you get some grit and grime in there, and I just feel like it blows my seals out. So I've always been looking at the softer options. Now these, the reason why I grabbed these is 1, they're totally affordable, and 2, they're extremely soft. So I feel like there's going to be no damage to my gear, and that's why I run these. Now there's one downside, because they are extremely soft. The warmer it gets, the softer they get, right? So in winter, spring, fall, perfect. But middle of summer, if you're in the south and you have these clips on, they can get so soft in the heat that when your motor's back there bobbing, it can actually bump them and start to push them and knock them off, and then your motor will turn. So in the hottest part of summer, they can be too soft. But the rest of the time, I really prefer that softer material back there bumping up against my steering ram. I feel like I just do a lot better going down the road. So these are so affordable. I just bought a new set for my boat because I'm always just replacing everything, because you know how it is. You get oil on them or grease on this, and all of a sudden it's a mess, gets on your hands. So I just bought a new set, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna talk about that, because it really does make a difference in my fishing when I'm going down the road, and I think it'll make a difference for you too. Again, with these videos, it's completely random. We go through the things that are impacting our fishing, and then we tell you about them. If you guys enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. I'll link all of these products in the video description. Like for the swim baits, I'll link my favorite hook to put inside them so you know how to rig them, you know, my upgrades on the blade bait, all that stuff, so you really can dial it in the same way that we have. But guys, get out there. I mean, it's springtime. Fish are biting. I blasted them this morning. I had a great time on the water, and you should be out there catching them too. There's all sorts of new, unique things that you can get out there and throw around in the spring and just have fun. This is the time of year where you don't have to struggle. You can just go out there and flat catch them. It's a ball. So again, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon.